Scared to use it?
Trust me, I know how to use it.
Masters of the Universe is not whether Nicholas Galitzine can convince people he belongs as He-Man, but whether the movie can make all of Eternia feel emotionally real without sanding down the glorious ridiculousness that made this franchise matter in the first place. Because that is the tension sitting underneath this new trailer. And honestly, that is why I find it more interesting than I expected. The easiest way to read the latest Masters of the Universe footage is as a reassuring nostalgia machine. There is Prince Adam, there is the Power Sword, there is Skeletor looking like a full commitment instead of a half-embarrassed compromise. There is Teela, Man-at-Arms, Evil Lyn, Fisto, and a larger, louder Eternia than fans have seen in live action before. On that level alone, the trailer is doing its job. It is telling longtime fans, yes, we know what this is supposed to look like, and no, we are not going to flatten it into generic fantasy mush. That matters a lot more than people think because Masters of the Universe has always been a tonal balancing act. If you make it to grounded, it dies. If you make it to ironic, it dies even faster. This world only works when the filmmakers believe in it enough to let it stay huge, colorful, melodramatic, and faintly absurd without apologizing for any of those things. The new trailer gives me hope because it finally feels like the movie understands that. It is not trying to fix He-Man for modern audiences by draining out the fantasy toy box energy. It is trying to sell that energy back to us in blockbuster form. That is the right instinct, and it is also why Skeletor may still be the movie's most important test, not He-Man. Skeletor He-Man is comparatively easy. He is a mythic heroic shape. Big sword, big destiny, big declaration, big transformation. Audiences understand that immediately. Skeletor is much harder. He has to be theatrical without becoming laughable, menacing without becoming boring, and stylized enough to feel faithful without slipping into costume party energy. The trailer's biggest win may be that Jared Leto Skeletor actually looks like a genuine attempt to walk that line instead of hide from it. The design is bold, the silhouette reads instantly, and the whole thing feels committed rather than timid. That is crucial. All the same goes for the broader Eternia presentation. One of the most encouraging things about the new footage is that Eternia does not look like a corner of Earth with some expensive production design pasted over it. It looks like a mythic place. Bigger environments, heavier visual contrast, and more support for the side characters all suggest the film understands this story cannot live or die on Adam alone. The world has to feel worth fighting for. The kingdom has to feel old, specific, wounded, and operatic. Otherwise, He-Man just ends up as another hero dropped into another disposable fantasy backdrop. This trailer, at least, seems to know better. And that is where Travis Knight becomes such an interesting fact. Dirk Knight's best live-action work on Bumblebee succeeded because it knew how to hold two tones at once, sincerity and pop icon spectacle. That is exactly the skill this movie needs. Masters of the Universe cannot survive as pure camp, and it cannot survive as po-faced fantasy seriousness either. It has to be emotionally sincere while still letting the iconography stay toyetic, oversized, and fun. The trailer does not prove Knight nailed that balance, but it does suggest he understands the assignment. That is more reassuring than I expected. Going any hole as Galitzine is still the wild card for a lot of people, and I get why. He is not the obvious, no-brainer action fantasy choice on paper, but that may also be exactly why he is interesting here. The trailer leans into Adam as a displaced figure first, someone separated from his origin, carrying a secret inheritance, and forced back into a world that expects transformation from him. That angle gives the character more emotional runway than buff guy finds sword. It also helps explain why Galitzine, rather than a more conventional action-first casting choice, might make sense. If the movie wants Adam to begin as uncertain, disconnected, and slightly out of place before becoming He-Man, then a performer with some emotional fragility in the mix is not a weakness. It may actually be the point. Supporting cast should help a lot too. Camila Mendes as Teela, Idris Elba as Man-at-Arms, Alison Brie as Evil Lynn, Morena Baccarin as the Sorceress, Johannes Hawker Johannesson as Fisto, James Purefoy as Rander, and Kristen Wiig voicing Roboto is an extremely aware lineup. These are not random names. They are actors who can either stabilize the mythology with weight or sharpen it with personality. If the movie really uses them instead of just parading them through fan service beats, that could make a huge difference. The trailer at least hints that it understands the ensemble side of this world, especially by giving more room to Eternia's allied characters instead of keeping everything centered only on Adam's transformation. What I also find interesting is the larger Mattel context. After Barbie, every toy-based movie immediately started getting judged on whether it could become the next impossible franchise breakthrough. That is probably the wrong lens for Masters of the Universe. This film does not need to become another Barbie in tone, scale, or cultural reach to work. It just needs to prove that a deeply stylized toy property can survive live action without either mocking itself or retreating into generic franchise grayness. That may be a smaller goal commercially, but creatively it is a very real one. And if this movie lands, it could matter a lot for how studios handle weird legacy properties going forward. There is still risk here. Obviously, a trailer can sell design and scale much more easily than it can sell emotional coherence. It can also make a movie look cleaner, leaner, and more tonally consistent than the actual final film turns out to be. That is especially true with fantasy blockbusters, where one wrong tonal swing can turn earnestness into camp in the wrong way. But I do think this trailer clears the biggest early hurdle. It makes the movie look like it actually wants to be Masters of the Universe, not just a version of it that modern executives found tolerable. That is not a small thing, so where do I land after this new trailer? I think Masters of the Universe looks more promising the moment you stop asking whether it can be cool enough and start asking whether it can make its own ridiculous grandeur. Feel emotionally justified. The visuals are closer to the right answer than many people feared. Skeletor looks committed. Eternia looks expansive. The ensemble looks useful. And Galitzine may work precisely because the film appears to be treating Adam's return as a real emotional threshold. Not just a costume changeth it is what makes this interesting. Not just the sword. Not just the muscles. The possibility that the movie may actually understand that the weirdness is the soul. And if it holds onto that, then this could be one of summer 2026's real surprises.